Hey everyone, today we're jumping into one of the most foundational books ever written, Genesis. But we're going to look at it through a really specific lens, one that argues it's not just a random collection of stories, but one single epic drama with a powerful, unified message running all the way through.
So here's the big question this whole analysis is trying to answer. How on earth does this ancient book use its story to explain some of the deepest problems we face as humans? The idea here is that Genesis isn't just a series of disconnected tales. Nope, it's a single, cohesive drama about a perfect plan, a catastrophic rebellion, and then the long, messy path back to restoration.
All right, so where does it all begin? Well, according to this commentary, the story kicks off with an ideal state, a world that was intentionally designed for blessing. And we're not just talking about, simple existence. The analysis really emphasizes that the number one goal was to bless humanity. This was all about empowering people with a divine purpose, to be fruitful, to multiply, and to partner with God in caring for creation. It's this incredible vision of shared purpose and total flourishing.
So what does this word blessing actually mean here? It's definitely not just a passive feeling. The source defines it as this active, divine power that makes growth and family and purpose possible. Think of it this way. Where we today might talk about success or achieving our potential, this analysis says that for them, it was just God's blessing. That was the whole shebang.
But of course, just as quickly as this perfect picture is painted, it gets completely shattered. And the commentary frames this not as some one-time mistake, but as the start of a repeating destructive pattern of rebellion. And what's fascinating is how the source kind of breaks down the anatomy of this rebellion. It's not a sudden snap. It's a clear three-stage process. It starts small, right? Just planting a tiny seed of doubt about God's goodness. Then that doubt grows and twists what God actually said. And finally, it ends in an outright denial of his authority altogether.
And the fallout from this pattern, wow. It is devastating. The analysis shows sin isn't static. It's an escalating force. It's like a domino effect. It starts with one person's alienation from God in the garden. Then that brokenness infects the family, leading to the very first murder. From there, it spreads to corrupt the entire world, which leads to the flood. And it all culminates in this massive act of organized, unified rebellion at the Tower of Babel. So in just a few chapters, the story literally moves from a harmonious garden to a defiant city. The source argues this is totally intentional. It's designed to show us how quickly and progressively sin spreads, and how humanity's attempts to make a name for itself separate from God just inevitably lead down a path of violence and corruption.
Okay, so things look pretty bleak, but the story is far from over. Just as the problem escalates, the analysis shows that the solution does too. God's response isn't some quick fix. It's a long-term restoration project, and it's built on a very specific tool.
And that tool is the covenant. The commentary defines this as a binding, formal promise made by God. Now, this is not a contract between equals. No way. This is a divine pledge that sets up a relationship and basically lays out the entire framework for his rescue plan. And this isn't just a one-off thing. The analysis points out a whole series of these covenants, 8 major ones, that are woven through the entire biblical story. Each one builds on the last, and each one reveals just a little bit more of this grand restoration plan.
Now, right here in Genesis, the commentary points out this really crucial pivot. After the flood, you get the Noahic covenant, which is a universal promise made to all of humanity, basically a promise to preserve the world. But then, with the Abrahamic covenant, the strategy narrows. God's plan to bless the entire world is now going to be channeled through one specific chosen family. And this brings us to maybe the most human part of the story. The analysis shows that this grand cosmic plan doesn't play out with perfect heroes. Instead, it works its way through the messy lives of deeply flawed, totally relatable people. I mean, just take Jacob. His name literally means deceiver. He tricks his blind father by pretending to be the older brother. So what happens years later? The commentary points out the painful irony. Jacob himself gets tricked by his father-in-law in the dark, getting the older sister when he thought he was marrying the younger one. The deceiver gets deceived. It's a perfect picture of that old saying, you really do reap what you sow.
According to the source, Jacob's real turning point isn't a moment of cleverness, it's a moment of pure desperation. He literally wrestles with God all night long, and he wins, not because of his strength, but because he just refuses to let go. He walks away from that encounter a broken man with a permanent limp, but also with a new name, Israel, and a totally new identity that's rooted in depending on God, not on his own schemes.
And this whole theme of God working through our human messiness really culminates in the life of Jacob's son, Joseph. His story, the analysis argues, has always been this incredible source of hope because it shows how a greater good can emerge from even the most profound suffering.
You see, it all comes down to Joseph's perspective. After being sold into slavery by his own brothers, he goes through decades of hardship. But when he finally sees them again, he doesn't see them as the final authors of his pain. He sees God's hand at work through their evil actions, weaving it all into a much larger plan of rescue. And that perspective, that's what frees him to be gracious and forgiving, instead of bitter and vengeful.
And that leaves us with this final, really powerful idea from the analysis. Genesis gives us a world where human rebellion is constantly met by a divine plan for restoration. A plan that doesn't just succeed in spite of our failures, but often unfolds directly through them. And that raises a pretty profound question, doesn't it? What does a framework like that suggest about the messy, complicated stories of our own lives and of history itself?